Thank you, Kathy, very much indeed. And thanks also to Carol. I really hope that all the colleagues with us this morning feel incredibly affirmed and uplifted by hearing from Carol, because to have that quality of research so that it becomes not just us saying how good rights respecting schools are, but to have somebody external, somebody bringing academic rigor to everybody's work, and to have that sense of the impact that you're all making for children, because ultimately that's what we're about. That's what the Convention on the Rights of the Child is about. That's what UNICEF is about. So thank you so much, Carol and Kathy. So I'm going to be joined now by a number of colleagues, and as they're put on screen, I want to welcome them. We'll hear from each of them in turn to do their own introductions. And just to say to everybody, we've developed this idea of having a panel at our conferences, and it always seems incredibly popular. I'd like just to point out at the beginning, though, that the colleagues joining us are not here because they are absolutely exemplary in their inclusive practice and they've cracked it and got everything 100% right. None of us would claim that ever. We're all a work in progress, and every school is a work in progress. What these colleagues have in common, though, is that they are long established gold rights respecting schools, and they've offered to contribute this morning to join a conversation, to represent everybody else really in the conference, to enter into a dialogue in the light of what we've heard from Laura Lundy and from Carol Robinson. So I'll hopefully sort of steer a conversation with colleagues, and I'm hoping somebody will set them up so that they join me on screen and you can see them all. So here they come from various parts of the UK. Great, welcome all. Thank you so much for finding time in a busy school day, just as everyone else on the conference has done this morning. But to put your head above the parapet really and sort of enter into a conversation is really, really appreciated. And you know, it'll be another group of colleagues at a future conference, and people always love just to hear from people like themselves who are living rights respecting day by day. So what I'd like to do by way of intro is just to invite each of you in turn just to say a few words about yourself and your school, and just really briefly at this stage a little nugget or two about how becoming rights respecting has added to the inclusive practice work that your school's committed to. I didn't share a running order with you, but I'm going to go down the country if that's okay, or down the map, which means starting with Scott from Alva Academy. So Scott, if you could do a little intro and respond to that initial one. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Martin, and thank you very much for the invite this morning. Delighted to be here. Delighted to share maybe one or two things that we've learned in our rights respecting journey with you this morning. We are Alva Academy in the very sunny Hillfoots of Clackmannanshire, the smallest county in Scotland. Nobody knows where we are. If you get to Stirling, get to Wallace Monument, turn right, you can't miss us. But you would think that we were in Shetland. We are in a wee backwater school. We're just under 1,000 young people. And I arrived here as head teacher 7 years ago. We started our unofficially rights respecting journey at that point. When I arrived at Alva Academy, I found perhaps this was a school more in tune with the teachers than the young people. A school whose curriculum was very much suited to the traditional and suited to your mainstream middle 60%. And that's what I felt. What we did have was a huge community investment in the school and a real sense of belief in our young people, but perhaps it wasn't well judged in terms of the provision that we were putting in place for them. What we did have was a nurture hub, and we still have that nurture hub today, and that was very much the beginning of our rights respecting journey, where we could see that young people who were nurtured, who were struggling, and who had difficulty with the traditional school day, that was the first part of our blueprint on our rights respecting journey. I'm very much a firm believer that somebody much smarter than me once said, if you base your school on three things, values, attitudes and relationships, you can't go far wrong. And that's the values that you see and exemplified every day, the attitudes that you nurture and celebrate, but also those that you challenge, and the relationships that you build and grow throughout the school year, throughout the school day. And that was very much our blueprint to begin. And the rights respecting journey that we've been on has allowed us to sharpen our focus, to get better where we needed to get better. Not just of those false platitudes being paid to the young people, those that lip service to pupil voice, but really putting ourselves out there and really asking hard questions of ourselves and putting ourselves in, I'll maybe touch on it later on, and putting ourselves in some really uncomfortable positions where our young people are telling us things that we don't want to hear, and we're a better place for it. So that's all I'll say just now, and I look forward to your questions later on.
Fantastic, Scott. Thank you so much. Great introduction. Really appreciate that. And we'll journey south then from Clackmannanshire over the border to the northeast of England and to Lynne. Welcome, Lynne. Good morning.
And everyone, thank you. Yeah, that's a difficult one to follow because I think that you really did sum up a lot of information in there. I'm Lynne Wales. I'm the head teacher at South Street Community Primary School.
Lynne, forgive me interrupting. Is there any way of either getting a little bit closer to a microphone or just raising your voice ever so slightly, please, for folks?
I'll try both.
Thank you.
So I'm the head teacher of South Street Community Primary School in Gateshead. I've been a head teacher here for 3 years now, but previously involved in rights respecting schools now for about 12 to 14 years. So it was something that when I took over the headship of South Street, I really believed in, that could make a difference. South Street had had 2 RIs in a row, and it was a really great framework. My kind of advice to other rights respecting leads in schools is it's a really good way of introducing lots of things without making it look like everything's your idea, and because nobody can argue with the values and the backing of UNICEF. So it's very much, if you believe in those values, and I don't think you're going to have many people who are working with children who are going to say they don't agree with those values. And then basically our journey has been to make those values happen. So they're not pieces of paper, you know, that actually that is the offer that we give to the children, and the children know that that's their offer. And for me, just giving everyone within the community a bit more of a voice has been the rights respecting journey always.
Fabulous. Thanks, Lynne, so much. And we'll be back to hear a bit more about that in a little while. Thank you. So journeying south again to the Midlands of England and to Razia. Welcome, Razia. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. My name is Razia Ali. I'm Executive Head Teacher at Wyndcliffe Primary School, a part of Lee Trust in Birmingham. And just like my colleagues, I feel being a right respecting school is exactly what we needed on our journey. I joined the school 9 years ago. It was in special measures, and we went on a journey and worked towards our silver award. And as soon as we managed to get the good, I asked for a resource base because it all was about inclusion and having an inclusive curriculum and everybody feeling valued. We started our resource base with 6 children, and currently we have got 46 children, and they are at the heart of everything that happens with UNICEF and the right respecting approach. It is lived and breathed in the community, in the ethos of the school. As you walk through the gates, you can feel it. All our external people will say you've got that warm approach. And listening to Carol earlier on, the children know it. If there is any misbehaviour in school, they will turn around. The teachers do not have to manage behaviour. They will turn around and say, it is my right to have an education and you've got to make a choice. It's also gone to the part where children that have got additional needs like social and emotional, if they are stepping out of the classroom and the teachers are saying, well, where are you going? They're actually saying it's my right to have some space, to have some thinking space, and then I'll come back into the school. The school is based in an inner city area, very deprived area, 59% pupil premium, 81% English as an additional language, 9% of the children have got EHCPs. But everything, pupil leadership, it includes every group in school. The parents have got involved. They will actually come in and say, my child is saying I've got a right to do my homework. At times my child is saying I've got a right to go out on my own. I said, no, that's not what we promote. But every single body is a duty bearer in school, and they know their roles and responsibilities. And it has made an absolute complete shift in the way the school community work. If anything does happen, if we have a natural disaster, and we were talking about pupil voice, the children will bring it to the table, but then they've got to lead on it. The assembly that is being delivered, the way we're going to raise, it is their voice, because they've got a right to be able to express. And that's how we actually function at the school. The school has been re-accredited got the Gold Award in 2019 and then re-accredited twice. And I will say Right Respecting was at the heart of the school getting the outstanding in July 2024, which the whole community worked for. So I want to say thank you for everybody who's brought that together. And it is inclusive, because the children in the resource base have their rights through widgets, so they know what they are going for. And I'm hoping to speak about that more during the morning.
Thanks, Razia. I hope we can create that opportunity and to hear some of the challenges around that as well, because that sort of practice doesn't happen easily. It has to be a conscious choice, and it's sort of delving into that in some of the ways that Laura was expressing to us this morning. It'd be great to explore. Thank you so much. And finally, down further south to the Greater London area and to Sharon. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Running out a few things to say now, coming last. So my name's Sharon Gladman, and I'm the executive head teacher of a 3 to 19 school in Barking and Dagenham. So we have 2,300 children on site. We are one of the most deprived boroughs in London, and the Rights Respecting framework that we got our gold fairly recently, January 2025, but we've been part of the process for quite a long time. I think the biggest areas it's had the most impact on currently, it's embedding that sense of dignity and respect, not only for yourself but for others. Developing young advocates, so our young people are very clear on not only advocating for themselves but advocating for those that don't have the ability to, speak up. And one of the highlights has been that through the advocating for others, we had a social enterprise group, and one of the key areas, being in such a deprived area, is hygiene poverty. And they could see that, peers in school were really struggling with the basics, and they won a social enterprise award, and they were so passionate and so evidence driven about the impact this had on their peers in school. They secured a £30,000 bursary from the local authority, because they were so clear on why this was so important. And I think that really just shows Rights Respecting having a real, it's very easy as is it Mark? Sorry, I've forgotten your name at the beginning.
Scott.
Scott said at the beginning, we can all say, yeah, the ethos is this, having actual concrete evidence of the impact because of the power it gives to our young people, I think is incredible. We also, living in an inner London borough, we do have lots of influences outside school that can put our young people in danger, outside the perimeters of the school. But we have such a culture of safety and dialogue that we know if someone is possibly going to make a mistake and bring something into school that perhaps they shouldn't, because they tell us, so that we can be proactive rather than reactive and ensuring that young person is safe. And that has increased dramatically over the last 5 years. Our curriculum is Rights Respecting is embedded across all our subjects, and bear in mind we're a 3 to 19, so That's a lot of curriculum to cover. And sometimes it'll be implicit, but it's becoming more and more explicit throughout the year. And the use of the article icons has been really fundamental in ensuring that all children are accessing the articles in a range of different ways, from our 3-year-olds up to our 19-year-olds, where we're preparing them then for, you know, the adult life and the adult rights they have. Pupil voice in this school is incredible. They put me to shame when it comes to speaking to large audiences and what will be happening in the future. And we always have young people on our appointments for senior leadership, and they are the hardest taskmasters in the world when you're sitting on a panel with your children, and they're very rigorous in, you know, how are you going to ensure that? How are you going to advocate for that? They're you know, they are wonderful, and I think really the lasting impact, and bear in mind, you know, we know this is the beginning really, as someone said earlier, becoming gold is almost the beginning of the journey. So our policies have transformed our culture in the school. It's united staff and pupils with a shared purpose to make our school and then the wider world a more respectful and compassionate place where you can feel safe to express differing views, but using a language which is also mindful of the impact it has on others. And I suppose this sounds a bit trite, and I truly don't mean it to, but it does have that sense of hope for the future, that hope that these young people who are going to go on and be our future politicians, but also, you know, other meaningful, more meaningful roles that are going to shape our future, our culture, and our standing in the world, we are preparing them with the tools that they can advocate for themselves, they can advocate for others, that will have a lasting impact.
Sharon, thank you. Thanks so much. To all 4 of you, wow. I mean, we could stop at that point and everybody could feel totally inspired and uplifted. But I want to delve a little more into the things we've already heard this morning so that colleagues who are watching in and listening in can really sort of make those connections. So I'd like to ask, not necessarily all of you to speak on this one, but see who wants to share something. Thinking about what Laura explored with us and that tension that exists so often in schools day by day, the tension between the rights of an individual or a small group and the rights of others and perhaps the majority. From your experience, how does a child rights approach help you to navigate those sorts of tensions and those challenging situations in school? We'll come back to you, Sharon. Thank you. You waited the longest. It's nice that you go again.
Thank you. You know, it is difficult, and I think sometimes the bigger the school, the more tensions and conflicting rights that you may or may not have, not only with your children, but then also again, you know, health and safety at work. You know, there's lots of different variations. For an inner London school, we look at every possible opportunity where we can speak to a young person who has made a mistake, and really schools are the places where our young people should be making mistakes so that they can learn from them, but also looking at safety factors. So we do have young people that have brought weapons into school, that have threatened peers and staff with weapons. So, you know, it's a really quite challenging environment, but we also know the impact that suspensions and particularly permanent exclusions have on a young person's future moving forward. And so, as I say, we've got 2,200, give or take, pupils in our school. Last year we had no permanent exclusions, the only school in the local authority with no permanent exclusions. But we also have a suspension rate of only 0.9%, which is way below national and way below our local similar schools. And part of that is looking at, right, this child does have the right to education, inclusive education. This child does have the right to be safe in an educational environment. And it's working with partner schools. And I think that's been really important so that it truly is a last resort. So we use recovery placements where mentors will work with those young people to discuss, you know, why did you feel the need? And if we can understand the whys, we can then put in the support that they need, which all sounds great until the support that they need is CAMS, and you can't get a child a CAMS referral, or they need maybe some time in something that's not mainstream, that's maybe more vocational, etc. and there isn't that opportunity for them to explore that because of resources outside our control. So I think we've made really big steps in really considering the rights of every child, not just the 29, as Laura mentioned. But then you do come up against a brick wall when the reality of what's outside your school gates, you can't impact and you can't get the support for that young people. And I suppose that's why we've still got a suspension rate of 0.9%. But it is those conversations, and it's finding out the whys, finding out the support, and that compassion that I think our young people have for each other. And they don't see it as grassing if they tell us that they know their friend is going to bring, whether it's drugs, knives, or any other, contraband on site. They don't see it as grassing. They see that as actually we're supporting them because we know the consequences if they go through with it are far greater than maybe having to have a difficult conversation. And I think that's been really evident in the last few years.
Thanks so much. That's amazing to get young people to that stage where taking that sort of action and having that courage to speak up for their peers because they know it's the right thing to do and it's in everyone's best interests. Fabulous. Thank you. Would any other colleagues like to sort of build on what Sharon shared with us there? Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. I think what Sharon said was very inspirational. And really that idea of that community, making sure that they're looking out for one another is absolutely essential. I think a big part of what we do is to ensure that I get myself a wee bit miffed, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus nationally or locally, but sometimes priorities aren't in place. And our priority is that what can we do to make sure that a young person is looked after and best supported? And that comes very simply from the fact that each young person's support is completely different. And you need to recognise that. You need to recognise that the supports for one person are, of course, going to be completely different, but it is 29 to 30 individuals in a class. How do we do that? We invest a huge amount of time and effort into our primary transitions. We know these young people coming up from primary 5, primary 6, primary 7, into our S1, S2 when they come to us at 11 years old. We've spent many man hours working with the schools and working with the families to make sure that they are coming into a curriculum that they can access, again, where we've dedicated time and resources to make sure that there's a supported curriculum there, with additional support in the class from what we would describe as learning assistants or classroom assistants, on top of a teacher who's benefiting from additional time to prepare lessons that those young people can access. When it comes to a young person's behaviour or social and emotional needs, you can't play at it. You need to make sure that those are being addressed. Now, whether that's through timeouts, whether that's through working with the nurture team, whether that's working with partners, you need to put those hard yards in. This is not easy. It's not easy. Building a curriculum, a supported curriculum, is not easy. It's not cheap. But you can't play at it. If you play at it, it will simply fail. And these young people will be lost in our system. We're sitting here with a building with 1,000 young people in it. I need to get that right for every single young person that comes through my door, not just the parents that shout loudest, not just the young person that jumps up and down and causes chaos. I need to get it right for every single one of them. And I was heartened when we actually read our gold report. One of our pastoral team had said each young person support is completely different. That's what they said, that in those words. And that's what we need to do. And that's why we don't overthink labels, we don't overthink demands, be it if it's somebody's behaviour, be it about the emotional or social needs that they're going at that point or where they are. We don't pigeonhole anybody. You meet that young person where they are and you find a solution.
Thanks, Scott, so much. Absolutely. I think what you say there and the passion with which you say it resonates with so many colleagues on the call this morning. Thank you. Razia, do please come in.
I mean, what the colleagues have said previously is just absolutely phenomenal, and exactly the same, knowing each child. We also do confidential questionnaires, which are bounce questionnaires. It is but it has helped us identify those invisible children, those ones that go underneath the radar, that come into school well behaved, everything's happening, but they've got a right as well to be recognised. In which way? We're always looking at children that may not be behaving, or the ones that are doing really well academically, but how do we get to know every single child? Because just like has been said previously, everyone that walks through that door has to have their own place, and we've got to support them. So it is giving, but it's also giving your staff and the school community the tools to be able to do that, to be able to understand, because there is so much going on, and they've got to have the understanding that yes, we have got the time and the right, the children have got the rights, but we have got the ability as duty bearers, as those rights, to make sure that they are recognised and something is put in place to support them. Because that's where the confidence and all the articulation and the RRSA and everything that we've spoken about. But if we don't recognise the needs of the children that are not showing things, then how are we making sure that every child's rights are being met?
Indeed, Razia, thank you. Thank you very much. Lynne, do you want to come in on this round, or shall I move on with a further question?
I don't think I've got that much more to add, because I think everyone's really put a lot of thought into it all, and yeah, I think everything's probably being covered. I think for us, one of the big things was, I probably didn't articulate earlier, we're in a very transient area with a lot of asylum seekers and refugees as well. So for us, a lot of the inclusion is community as well, and really understanding and knowing the backgrounds of the children and spending that time, like people have said, it is a lot of time and effort, but to get to know the families and to ensure that they've got that support and that trust as well, because it's the biggest trust anyone can ever place in you, giving you their child, I think, to work with. So I think getting the trust of the parents on board with everything is very vitally important as well for that inclusive atmosphere in school.
Thank you, Lynne, for that. I'm really interested by your focus on the word trust. As I was listening to Carol's contribution earlier on, I actually wrote that word down because it came through a couple of times, both in the research and then in her follow-up comments. And I wonder, either would any of you like to address how we build trust and trusting relationships between children and adults? Or as an alternative, was there anything that jumped out for you from Carol's presentation and the research that she's undertaken on rights respecting schools? So I'd really like to explore that trust question, but take it in another direction if you wish. Scott, thank you. Oh, you're on mute, Scott.
A COVID flashback there.
Yeah, you're allowed to have your voice. You're right to have your voice heard,
Can I also just apologise that I don't normally dress like a PE teacher, but we're doing our Macmillan fundraising today, so that's why I'm in a green and white t-shirt. So my apologies for not attending a national conference without my shirt and tie on. In terms of trust and belonging, I think for us it's always been about actions. Actions speak louder than words. When young people have come to us, we need to be seen to be listening, and then we need to take them on that journey. What are we doing about it? And they get to see the impact. We have a number of opportunities across the school. Of course we do. We have senior captaincy teams, junior captaincy teams. We have a fantastic pupil parliament who possess enough energy and creativity that would put any adult to shame. We have opportunities for young people to go and thrive and just really, wow, blow us away. But the simple fact is, to build that trust, when they come to us, when they really raise something that means something to them, what do we do about it? So, for example, we take surveys, we discuss with our young people, we have wellbeing discussions, we do all these things. And then the University of Strathclyde come to us and they do some focus group discussions. And then I've got a problem. I've got a problem because a group of our young people start to discuss the impact that vaping in toilets has on them. I've got a problem because there's a slowly but surely a culture of growing misogynistic attitudes, perhaps not behaviour, but attitudes starting to grow within our 14-year-old boys. Suddenly I've got a problem because we then have a racism issue, because 12 to 15-year-old boys think it's okay to use certain words whether they feel it's malicious or whether it's just in reference to one another, but it's completely unacceptable. So suddenly I have a vaping problem, I have a racism problem, and I have a group of young people who are airing this. Now, easy thing for me to do is ignore that. The best thing I can do is listen and take some action. What we did is we engaged a large number of young people. We took their views on it. We now have a positive relationships policy that reflects the anti-racism work that they did, the assemblies that they put together, the class inputs that they put together. We have had a number of outside speakers addressing the misogynistic behaviour that can grow in a school and can grow within groups of young people. We have vape alarms now installed that buzzes in my pocket whenever somebody's out having a fly vape. But these things are all built around building trust in our young people. Our young people can use a toilet without fear of walking into something that resembles stars in your eyes. Our young people feel safe in, going onto our tile. We have a tile where they can raise concerns about the school and they know that something will be done. And when it's not done, can I tell you, I am the most annoyed person in the building, because that trust is everything. And if we don't have it, how can you build a community? And I mean that in its true sense. How can you actually have a community without that trust?
Thanks, Scott, very much. Yeah, absolutely. I think that really chimes with all of us from a school perspective. Does anybody else want to come in either on the trust or on something else that was raised through Carol's presentation? Sharon, thank you.
I was going to say, with trust, I mean, we are a very diverse school community and a local community. And when 2 years ago, when the incident in with Hamas took place, we've got a large Muslim demographic in our school, and there were tensions building between some of our Muslim children and non-Muslim children about how they felt about Palestine. And that could have quite easily become a real flashpoint. But because we listened to our young people and they have that forum, we were able to put together a almost like a question time situation where they could come and questions would be answered from both sides in a very calm and intelligent way, but they were heard. Now, obviously, we couldn't go in there and say, yeah, we'll get that sorted over there. That wasn't the aim of it, but the aim was that they could, in a safe space. And it's that psychology of safety where you can say, as long as you are mindful of your, how other people feel. And that actually turned into a real positive within the school. It actually did bring that understanding of how everybody felt to the forefront. Whereas it could have become quite a divisive tool, which it has been, it's been divisive in so many ways. And I think it's that, again, is that down to trust, that if we understand that they have got concerns, and it doesn't have to be about school, a lot of the time it is things global or local that are causing them concerns. It might be gangs, etc. But having that forum and that method in which they can express their concerns without fear of their being judged or anything like that, I think is so important, because it takes forever to build trust up. It takes one bad move for that trust to go. And rebuilding trust is, 100 times harder than, your first build. So it is about, again, it's going back to the listening, but ensuring that our young people have the language and the ability to articulate their concerns and their voices and their opinions in a way that will allow them to be heard. Because if you're shouting and screaming, you're not going to be heard. So it's giving them the tools as well, I think, is really important.
Thanks, Sharon, very much indeed. Really appreciate those thoughts. I'm aware that there may be questions in the chat. None have come my way, but Kathy, feel free to let us know if there are questions that colleagues would like our panel members to reflect on briefly. If there is anything coming through. Oh, Kathy, go ahead. Yep. Thanks.
So there is a question for Scott, if that's okay, Scott. The question is, people are interested in how you've turned around the staff approach from when you started. You talked about it being a more traditional style with the adults at the centre to being more inclusive and rights respecting. And were there any challenges in relation to this as you moved forward?
Yeah, absolutely. There've been a number of challenges, because that traditional mindset of you come to school, you teach what you've always taught was a difficult thing to step away from. But it was showing people how you could expand a curriculum and how you could meet the needs of every young person there. And again, that was about taking the time to show the different things. For example, if you were looking at a science course, have you ever tried to convince a chemistry teacher to do something different? Good luck to you. And if anybody on this call has, if you can give me a wee call, we can share notes. It is difficult, but what you need to be able to do is exemplify good practice. You need to show that they're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
And it's actually just a will to change. It's not, we'll figure out the how, we'll figure out the why, but it's actually just that will within the team to change. And we very, very quickly established an ethos within the school that this was a school for everyone, and that every subject area must have a pathway available to them. Now, if that subject required that I give them, and they didn't do any cover classes for 3 weeks, then they didn't do any cover classes for 3 weeks. If during prelim time or mocks, they didn't do any cover classes, they got the time then, but we provided them with the time, and it was painful. Of course it's painful. When you need classes covered and you don't have teachers to do it, it's painful. But it's just that mindset that you're willing to invest in it. You're exemplifying, you're sharing good practice from other schools where you can see it working. And just that, you just never step away from that culture. They just get the sense from you that you're not going to leave this alone. And what you'll also find is that 80% of your colleagues aren't against it.
Yeah.
80 to 85% of your colleagues just want to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Because they're in this. Because they're in this
scary,
vocation
isn't
for a
it?
reason.
Change is scary. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're in this vocation for a reason, and when you can show them how to do it, they are absolutely on board. And my goodness, of course, you're going to have your, you know the guys in the staff room we're talking around. Yeah, you know those guys are going to be hard to shut. But when you can get 85% on the bus, you're onto a good thing.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And that sense of collaboration really comes through, doesn't it? That modelling, that exemplifying, as you say, the working together, bringing people along with you, staying true to those values. And I think, as Lynne and others have alluded to as well, it's that community, that it boiled down to what do we want for our children?
Absolutely.
And what's the best way to achieve that? Yeah.
Teachers
fantastic.
by nature will give you 10 reasons why they can't do something. If you can show them 9 reasons why you can, you'll get the 9 teachers going with it, and you'll also have that one one sitting on the fence.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think that's all the questions for the moment, but I'll let you know if there are any more, Martin.
Thank you, Kathy, and thanks, Scott, for that. Just an invitation to any of you. Is there a final sort of observation any of you would like to share, just because we need to bring this to a close in the next minute or so, but last chance for anything that you'd hope to convey to the audience today that I've not given you an opportunity to share. Oh, it's the first time you've all been quiet. Razia, have a final word. Go for it.
No, I just wanted to say that, like I've said previously, it does bring the whole school ethos, the community, and like Scott has just said, you've got to show people the way. And once you're there, it is getting people ready for the next stage of our young people. But when I look at rights respecting, I know there's different ones for adults, but when you're in a school, they are for everybody. So your teachers are learning them, and they have to live through everything you do, your assemblies, your play times. It has to be part, and I know it's not cliche, the golden thread through everything that you are living from the moment that you walk in, your cooks are doing, your site staff are doing. That's what we're working on, is a jigsaw bringing everything together, and this absolutely just brings it together. Absolutely. It's the glue. It is the glue that gives you the proper purpose and the pathway to what your vocation, because teaching is not a job.
Absolutely. I think we can't better that, Razia. I'm sure colleagues will 100% agree that you've summed things up to perfection there. Sharon, thank you so much. Lynne, really appreciate your inputs and your time. Razia, massively appreciated your being with us today. And Scott, for your words of wisdom as well. Thank you all so very, very much for joining us. It's really appreciated and valued by colleagues. right across the land and beyond. Thank you very, very much indeed.